Craig Simpson of NHL and Sportsnet Hockey Night in Canada joins me now. What's up, buddy? How we doing?
Good. Was that my walk-up song or
that
something?
Was.
I didn't recognize it.
You didn't recognize it?
I did not.
I thought that was what they play for you every day as you enter the arena. That's not your one. That was that. We got bad information then. So yeah, get ready to strap in, get ready to watch these games. But I always love to get to pick your brain, especially as someone who is there and watches so many of these games and year over year over year. Like I think it's been mentioned that you have now done more like national broadcasts than anybody else in the history of, analyzing any kind of hockey. That when you watch this Leafs team now, because you've seen them so many times and year over year, it felt very similar, right? You'd go through these patterns of the team. Okay, we're here. We're at this point of the season. We're going to do this conversation. All right. And for me, like it does feel very different. And there are certain elements I can put my finger on, and there are others that I can't quite do it. And there are others where I wonder if I'm imagining it, like if I'm hoping for this to be true versus what is the reality as you go game to game. And from your viewpoint, what do you see as the most glaring difference between this group and the years prior, where we were kind of going, all right, this is the motions, the regular season?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's anything glaring. I'll start where all good teams start, and that's between the pipes.
Yeah.
Like, when have you had a morning show where you're talking about a 927 or a 924 save percentage, or both guys sort of pushing each other? That just 2.23 and 2.13 are not usually goals against averages, right? In your vocabulary. So that, let's face it, that allows you to be creative in other areas or find a little bit extra time to figure out how defensively, you want to collectively play together. It takes care of mistakes that always are made that used to be in the back of your net, which, let's face it, you've seen enough, not just Leaf games, watch any game on any night. A goal early on that should not be a goal just deflates a bench. Or when it happens for 8 out of the first 10 games of the year, you're not the same team. You're not the same trusting team. It's hard to build the blocks to become maybe changing the way you need to play if you don't trust the guys back there. So I would say first and foremost, that is a glaring difference from years past, and credit to both players, and starting with Stolarz to sort of calm everybody down when all the talk was Joseph Woll, can't stay healthy. Now look at the two of them. They seem to have a good yin and yang going, and they seem to like each other, which I think is really important, and they're both playing great hockey. Defensively, though, it's always in a little bit of the details of, what were you last year? Well, can you go from 21st in the league in goals against per game to right now a top 3 team? That's a transformation that you're seeing the fruits of it here. There's still some games where you go, oh man, this team can't score right now, or you got a few guys that are struggling to put the puck in the net. We talked about Nick Robertson, but those are all backstories when you're not giving up 4 a night, right?
Yep.
I think the transformational change, listening to the way that Craig, right from day one, and he's a pretty consistent guy, as you, I'm sure, know, listening to a post game. If they don't have a great 5-on-5 game, what's he say? Same thing. We're not getting to the net hard enough. We're not, being physical enough. And so I think the messaging has sunk in a little bit. Defensively, though, to me, starting with the goalies, but also boxing out for the D, defending in their own zone. Those are the two transformational things that allow you to be, what are they, almost or just over a half a goal game less scoring. But when you're giving up 2.5 a game, that's where you're able to win games that I think in other years they never could.
Yeah, we're not that far removed from debating whether Curtis McElhinney or Garrett Sparks should be the backup.
Yeah, you're right. It's transformational, don't you think? To this point, anyways.
Yeah. Again, getting excited about a few games of Martin Jones at the end of his career. Michael Hutchinson basically perpetually being a part of this organization. Like it's not, it hasn't been phenomenal. And in fact, the only other time that they kind of had a tandem that you felt confidence in was when Freddie Andersen was returning from injury, but there was never really proof of concept because Jack Campbell got so hot that you couldn't really take him out of the net. And then it didn't become a good story because Freddie Andersen felt aggrieved, and it spiraled out into being him leaving the organization and not on the best of terms. So, no, they have not had this. They haven't even had anything that remotely resembles it. And I think that you touched on something there that has probably been very overlooked because like I haven't thought about it up until you kind of touching on it there, which is, you know, they've got these young guys on the roster right now. And yes, defensive principles and them trying to figure out Craig's system and do all this different stuff. But when I see some of these younger guys like Minten come up or Grebenkin come up, they get to be now in a winning atmosphere. They don't feel as though there's all the world pressure on them, despite it being a Toronto market. And part of it is that, like, you're winning games and the atmosphere around the team is good, but they're not really scoring goals. Like, if this was on the forward group, I feel like you'd have a more exhausted, well, not even superstars, like, because Matthews has been injured. But, like, yeah, you probably would have a little bit of a stretched out Mitch Marner. Maybe William Nylander's feeling that pressure a little bit more, that everybody has been able to take a bit of a breath and enjoy the atmosphere of winning versus what it would be if, you had basically league average goaltending. Yeah,
and it's those, fundamentals of your game to say, okay, if I haven't scored in a while, I can still be contributing when we're not giving up 5 and we're out of the game early on. So you have to open up. And I think, though, the key, I liked your point about it was such a unique time, and I don't think it's by chance that Matthews missed a significant section where you look at the schedule and you go, oh man, if he's ever going to get healthy, this is the place where he's got to do it, right? Yep. So I think that was definitely by design, without question. I kept saying, I don't remember a rhythm of a season where you're playing Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday. I mean, that just never happens. And so now is the time where you say, okay, this is a good little test for them. But like you just said, it's okay to have that kind of test when you've lost, 2 of your last 10 or whatever. It's
your first in the Atlantic.
And you're feeling good about yourself, and you're feeling like, when you still see on the goals for column a few 5s and 4s and that, but you start looking down on the right side since the beginning of the season, and you don't see those 5s and 6s or even 4s that often. So I think the fundamental of how are we going to get through this game, let's not pretend, though, that the top 3 guys got you through that stretch without Matthews. Like, they deserve the credit of, okay, the team collectively played well defensively, but were there better players than Marner, Nylander, Tavares when your captain was out? No. And there's another thing where I don't think it was the pressures on them. It's like, no, that's what we're here for. Now you've got a fundamentals of your game that you're not chasing it every night. You're not down 3-0 and trying to open up and come back. I think you realize Craig's messaging saying this is how we have to play, so let's play that way. But it doesn't mean that you can't still be who you are and be creative and be good. And so I think a lot of credit goes to those top 3 with the way that they've sort of dragged the team through this time.
I totally agree, especially since so I've had when I'm talking about what feels different this year, and when I'm saying, am I making it up in my mind? The part of me is you go, this is a league where guys do win later. Guys do hit their primes in their 26, 27, 28, 29 seasons. And right now I'm kind of looking at just the timeline of Nylander and Marner and Matthews. And there was this idea that, okay, maybe Tavares has aged out of that, right? That he's gotten a little bit too older, his game, he's lost a bit of a step. But it's like, no, that's been kind of proven wrong so far this year. You look at his goals per game, his points per game, the puck battles that he's winning, the fact that this entire fan base is outraged that he's not going to be on Team Canada's Four Nations team. Like, he's been great. And all of a sudden you go, wait, maybe the timelines have synced up here for these guys as a group. And the way I'm feeling watching these games is whenever they're playing most teams, right? And there's nights where other guys have top tier talent, like they played the Oilers on a Saturday, goes to an overtime, whatever. They got Connor McDavid. I don't think that they're like outskilling them. but that with all these injuries, the Leafs still feel like they have the top tier talent almost every single night against every single team. Like when Marner and Nylander have gone over the boards, or Tavares has gone over the boards, I'm like, well, there still is a talent discrepancy between these three and what the other teams have in terms of their top three, as well as this goaltending and as well as this defensive structure.
Yeah, and like the elite guys are playing at that level. So that's exactly how you then go, okay, a guy like Fraser Minten comes in, or, the Grebenkin, all the young guys who are cutting their teeth. Or you can go with Max Domi not scoring in the first 19 games. Like, how does that happen back-to-back years? Look at the different feel from last year early on and to this year. I just think that you're able to defend better, and so it's not as pressure point as it was in the past. But I do think that it allows those guys to come in and just focus on how do you have to play to be a Leaf now, right? Like this is, and again, it's the messaging. Every coach has a different messaging. Every coach has a different methodology. I think you can definitely see clearly that Craig and Sheldon have different messaging in different ways, not necessarily a totally different sense of how to play the game, but I do think that the messaging and the way it comes from the head coach allows guys to understand and just play and be comfortable playing a certain way, as long as you're doing two things. And what does Berube say all the time? Work hard and compete in the game. And that's where you're saying, like, to me, John Tavares in that regard has worked hard and played hard in every game, hasn't he? And, I think the fruits of that come and say, oh, okay, there's sort of the basis of what I have to do. And I just think that then collectively as a group, you're a stronger team. I go back, putting stretches together is really important to learn how to be a consistent team to win every night. And I talked with Oilers players, Connor and Leon and all the key major guys last year, when they went on their 16-0 run and they went 14 in a row with 2 goals or less, right? They realized they found a way that you have to play, and that you have to play defensively to win. And they started to talk and feel like they could be a Stanley Cup team. The Florida Panthers went on a 16-2 run last year. And during that time, again, the same. So I look at even these last few weeks where put the numbers together, what is it, 10, 12, 12-2, you start to now go, oh, I start to get how you play, and it starts to feel good, and the rhythm of how you have to be as a team and how hard you have to compete and what level you have to get to early in games. That's where I just think as a team you start to believe in each other and understand how to play the game each and every night and not get too high, not get too low, allow guys to come in and fill roles, and you don't have to worry that maybe they can't score every night, but they're not giving up to. They're not, the new guys aren't coming in and getting a -3. Actually, a couple of the -3 nights have been your top guys because they have tougher matchups, right? And I think that's what you're seeing in the last little while. It'll be interesting to see if they can really push this through this next stretch where you are playing a lot of games. Can you get that kind of consistent effort each and every night when you're playing, 5 and 8 nights?
Yep. And you know what, though, too, is you can have the extra odd night or off night, like they did against Chicago. Like they played poorly. In that second period, was as bad as they've played. They still won because Stolarz was unreal. He made a bunch of saves,
and
bottom
and
time.
The power of that on the bench, I've played on some teams that had some great goaltending, and I like great goaltending all the way to the Stanley Cup, to winning the Stanley Cup. And it's those moments where you don't have your game tonight. You know that you're struggling a bit, and you're sitting on the bench and you see the mistake happen and you go, oh, man, what a save. Like it just collectively the group is going, come on, guys, we got to get it for him. We got to dig our game in. And I've also – I remember my first Stanley Cup final working was Detroit playing Philadelphia, and they had such goaltender problems this is the late 90s. And Brendan Shanahan, I actually scored a goal from a slap shot outside the blue line. I was right by the Flyers bench, and it just was like, oh no, here we go again. You know, this is the Stanley Cup Finals too, or playoffs, and I think that's the impact that you've seen in the past, where there's a goal that should never be a goal. Now your bench is deflated. I think you've seen the opposite of that, and that's powerful. That's what you need to be a really good team going on. Is your goaltender can't score goals, but man, can he motivate you and help the team get through some rough stretches.
Yeah, I think that the last season was a very clear example of that with Samsonov. Like, you could just see the way that the team would respond when it was night in, night out of that one. It's like, seriously? Okay, God. All right, you're playing from behind. Like, what a slog that is every single night, knowing that you do have to be perfect versus knowing that there is something that is there to catch you if you do make a mistake. So I want to ask you, too, before you go, about the young guys. Because to me, if you just look at the ice time, like the Grebenkins, it's like you got to send them down, because I don't think it's good for his development to be playing whatever, like 9 minutes a night, 8 minutes a night. You want to see him get more. Good flashes, good productive outings for Toronto. Has ingratiated himself with the fan base, certainly. He's become a fan favorite immediately. He's gotten a taste of NHL life. Great. All of it awesome. Same with the Steveses of the world. We're like, good for you. Minten is a little different. This is somebody where I'm like, okay, he clearly needs a season at the AHL level. He's got to dominate. He's going to, hopefully be a big part of this team the following season. But now I'm looking at it, and it's like, he's already got more goals than Kampf, Domi, Reeves, Dewar. Like, you go on down the line. I'm saying combined. All those guys combined. Just with two. He's been putting up points. He looks defensively responsible. Like, he seems to have a real understanding of how to play the game. And, would you like him getting more ice time, and would you like developing more? Like, maybe you would, and maybe you'd like to have more depth. But, do you think that you'd like to see him stick around as people do get healthy and see what he looks like maybe playing with, like, higher caliber NHL players on his wings? Like, maybe you do put Max with him.
Yeah, you know what? I think he's a great example of, you don't feel like he's overmatched right away. And I agree with you with Grebenkin. You say, well, good things. It's a great time. It's good for the fan base even to see what potentially is coming up. But there's no reason for him to be in that role and play around. I would say there's a hole in the middle, right? Like there is some, even when Max is back, is Max really going to be, a center iceman come the most important time of year? I would say probably not. And then you just listen to the words of the coaches and the way he talks, the way he prepares. The kid's got the exact same numbers in 5 games in the American League when he was down there, right? 2-2 in 5 games. He comes up to the NHL, he's the same player. I mean, I know it's a different league, but it says a lot that there's not a lot of variance in his game. You don't get yet, anyways. We're only 5 games in, but huge swings in how he plays. So I think there's going to be a long runway for him on that, but also with the mindset of, are we hurting him? I go back to even, I know it's very different, but when Leon Draisaitl was back in Edmonton and they kept him for 39 games, and I remember the debate, people going, well, he's not ready yet or that. They looked at this kid and say he's going to be a heck of a player. Now, I'm not saying Minten's going to be Draisaitl, but I remember the debate of going, well, he shouldn't be here. Why? But he's learning how to play against NHL guys at a level, and he's not overfailing. He's not producing as much, whereas Minten has been able to. I'm not sure he's going to get 4 points every 5 games, in his first foray in the league. But I just think, as a coach and as a general manager watching and saying, is he overwhelmed? Doesn't look like it yet. Will he get overwhelmed? Yeah, you know what? He might. This grind coming up might be a little too much for a younger player. But I think the value of having him in there, not only the value that he's bringing to the team, but for his growth, I think they'll run that till they feel, okay, maybe go back down for 25, 30 games and, you come down there with a great confidence. And then in your mind you go, could he be in the playoffs, our third-line center? I don't know. It's a little bit too early, but I don't think there's anything in his game right now or anything you should be worried about keeping him up and allowing him to play when the team gets a little bit healthier now.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it too. I originally thought immediately that it would be like, okay, well, you got to get him back down because he's got to be doing everything. He's got to be playing 20 a night, all these different things, get stronger, get low. And yeah, have we seen guys play good 5-game stretches before and then not?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. It's happened. But right now, there's real intrigue there for me, and for a lot of the reasons that you outlined. And there's also something else with him that I really think might be valuable. Not only that he seems very mature. I've spoken with him, and just what everybody says about him, like he's weirdly like the most baby-faced kid to maybe maturity level that you'll see, where it's like he looks 13, but the brain seems closer to like 25, 26. But you think about every Leafs prospect, right? Especially a first-round pick, and when they're coming up here, and the pomp and circumstance and the discussions. Like I had Kadri on the show a couple of weeks ago and going through and thinking about, God, what it was like for him, right? Like, when newspapers mattered and him on the covers of them before he's even like playing games and the discussion of what he was going to be, and God, like nonstop, right? Every single player. I remember being a kid, like my first real experience with that younger was like when Matt Staging came up, and I think he scored 2 goals in his first game, and the city just like the fan base lost it. They're like, "This is Gretzky. We have Gretzky now," and he has been, I think, pretty much properly rated by the fans from an expectation point. It has not been crazy for him. It hasn't been overwhelming for him. People aren't setting their sights on going, is he the first line center? Like they're asking, can you be the 3C of the future? And that has to make things a little bit more comfortable as you're trying to navigate the league and the pressures that come with it.
It does. And part of that is, I agree, part of it is his personality, a little less assuming and not as aggressive and outgoing maybe, but when you listen to the talking points of every interview of every player, and I know words get bandied around and so guys start talking the same, but everyone says, great hockey sense. He's got maturity. He talks like a veteran on the bench. And so guys gravitate to that. Veteran guys gravitate to a guy who comes up and just says, what do I need to do to, be a player here, and put the work in and don't say much, but ask questions. I nothing better as a veteran guy than a guy coming in and not thinking he knows how to do everything, coming in and listening and absorbing and having a good calmness to him and a work ethic to him. And then on the bench, you're looking and going, oh, that was a good read. And then come back and say, what should I have done there? And that's where you start to endear yourself to the real players who you have to get into their, minds that I'm a guy you can trust and I'm a guy who's going to come in and help contribute. And I think, as I said, don't get overwhelmed by it. It's 5 games in. And so how much can change. But if I'm evaluating this guy of all the guys that have been up and say, you know what, he's really helping us at a time where we need it, in a position where we need it, doesn't look overwhelmed. There is nothing wrong than being a 14-minute a guy center in the National Hockey League.
Correct.
That's not 7 minutes where you got to go back down, or even 10 minutes. But I think 5 games in, you've shown that you can play, and you've endeared yourself to the coach with that hockey sense, as they talk about. And I think it'll be fun to watch how they handle him over the next couple months.
Hey, all those things you just said about young guys and the approach that they should have coming in the room and the excitement of the older guys, is like, we're clipping that for my producers. Like, they're going to be listening to that after the show today. That will be today's lesson, is what you just got from Craig Simpson. You listen to that, because guess who else it applies to? You guys behind the glass. Craig, as always, a real pleasure to get to chat with you and pick your brain. Thanks for doing it, man.
All right. Have a good day. Take care.
Take care.